In 1923, a Jewish grandmother on Orchard Street could stretch a single chicken into 7 meals. Her granddaughter today orders rotisserie from Whole Foods. Number 17 on this list was so common that push cart vendors sold it on every corner of the Lower East Side. But try finding it today, and even the oldest delis will stare at you blankly. These 25 dishes fed millions of immigrants who built this city with their bare hands. They survived pogroms, famines, and ocean crossings. But they could not survive the suburban supermarket. The recipes your great-grandmother carried in her head, the ones she never wrote down because everyone just knew them. 046 Those recipes died when she did. Before we start, hit that subscribe button. Let's count down the 25 immigrant recipes that vanished from New York kitchens. Hungarian immigrants crowded into tenements on the Upper East Side, and when money ran thin, mothers reached for cornmeal. Piska was peasant food, a thick cornmeal mush cooked until it pulled away from the pot, then sliced and fried in bacon drippings until the edges crisped golden. In 1921, a 5 pounds bag of cornmeal cost 12 cents, enough to feed a family of 6 for nearly a week. The dish arrived at the table steaming, topped with sour cream or crumbled sheep's cheese that Hungarian grocers sold from wooden barrels on one avenue. Children drizzled it with honey when fathers were not looking. Oral histories from the Yorkville neighborhood recall mothers shaping leftover poliska into cakes for the next morning's breakfast, fried crisp and eaten with black coffee before the factory whistle called. When Hungarian immigration slowed after the Quota Acts of 1924, the dish began its quiet retreat. Today, polenta sits on restaurant menus at $18 a plate, but piska, the version that sustained a generation, exists only in handwritten recipe cards yellowing in forgotten drawers. Number 24. Schmaltz and gribbiness, Lower East staples. Every Jewish kitchen on the Lower East Side kept a jar of rendered chicken fat near the stove, golden and fragrant, the foundation of a cuisine born from necessity. Housewives saved chicken skin and fat, rendering it slowly until the liquid fat beans, crackling bits of pure flavor that children begged to eat straight from the pot. By 1925, kosher butchers on Hester Street sold raw chicken fat by the pound for just pennies. Schmaltz went into everything. Chopped liver, mashed potatoes, spread on rye bread with coarse salt. Health campaigns of the 1960s condemned chicken fat as poison, and within a generation, the jars vanished. Crisco and margarine took their place. But old-timers will tell you that nothing makes chopped liver like schmaltz. The jars are mostly gone now, and with them the taste of 1,000 Friday night dinners. Number 23. Svikova. Czech families settling in Etoria brought a dish that required patience, something New York rarely offered. Beef sirloin was marinated for days in root vegetables, vinegar, and spices, then braised until fork tender, and served with a creamy 350 to sauce thickened with sour cream and cranberries. The preparation began on Wednesday for a Sunday meal. In 1922, Czech social halls along Steinway Street served svikova at community dinners with tables packed with factory workers and their families. The dish required time that American life increasingly refused to give. By the 1970s, the Czech halls had closed, and svikova survived only in the memories of grandchildren who could describe the taste, but not recreate. Number 22. Kapusniak. Polish immigrants packed into Greenpoint tenements, and when winter pressed against thin windows, mothers made kapniak. Sauerkraut soup, soured and smoky, was built on ham bones saved from better days. In 1920, sauerkraut sold for 3 cents a pound, making kapusniak the cheapest hot meal a family could produce. The soup stretched across days, improving with each reheating. Church cookbooks from Polish parishes recorded dozens of variations, yet, as Greenpoint gentrified and Polish delis closed, kapusniak retreated from everyday tables. A soup that sustained generations through impossible winters now exists mostly in memory. Number 21. Supply Alfano. Italian immigrants from Rome brought a snack that delighted children and puzzled everyone else. Day-old risotto was mixed with egg and mozzarella cubes shaped into balls, breaded and fried until the cheese inside stretched into long strings like telephone wires. On Mulberry Street in 1924, vendors sold supply for 2 cents apiece. The dish required leftover risotto, which meant making risotto in the first place, a task that faded as Italian-American kitchens modernized. Today, arancini appear on upscale menus, but they are not the same. Supply were simpler, made from whatever risotto remained from Sunday dinner. Number 20. Kartel Klöße. German families carried with them the tradition of the potato dumpling. Raw potatoes were grated, squeezed dry, mixed with mashed potato, and shaped into balls with a fried bread croûton hidden inside. By 1923, German butchers sold the dumplings ready-made, but traditionalists insisted only homemade would do. The preparation demanded technique that could not be written down. When German-American communities dispersed after World War II, carrying the shame the war had attached to their heritage, the dumplings gradually disappeared. Number 19. Zeppel de San Josep, Bronx, St. Joseph's tradition. Every March 19th, Italian bakeries transformed into temples of fried dough. Zeppoli were cream puffs fried golden and filled with custard topped with a branded cherry. In 1926, Bronx bakeries sold zeppoli by the dozen for the Feast of St. Joseph. As Italian families moved to the suburbs, the neighborhood bakeries closed one by one. Today, a few old bakeries will still produce them each March, but the lines that once stretched around the block have dwindled. Number 18. Borscht with Yushka. Ukrainian immigrants made a Christmas Eve borscht with uska. Tiny ear-shaped dumplings filled with mushrooms folded with precision that took years to master. In 1922, Ukrainian women gathered in church basement to fold us by the hundreds, their hands moving automatically while conversation flowed. By the 1970s, the church basement had emptied, and the youngest generation could no longer fold the ears properly. The army of grandmothers who once folded them by starlight has dwindled to a few. The Kenish that New Yorkers know today bears no resemblance to what Yonah Schimmel sold from his push cart in 1910. Those original Kenishes were the size of a fist. Their dough hand stretched thin as paper over floured cloth until you could read a newspaper through it. By 1925, push cart vendors sold Kenishes for 3 cents apiece. When production moved to factories in the 1950s, the hand-stretched dough became impossible to replicate. The taste of a real push cart quiche has been lost to efficiency. Number 16. Caponatata Siciliana. Sicilian immigrants made a summer dish of fried eggplant mixed with tomatoes, celery, capers, and olives in a sweet and sour sauce. In 1924, Sicilian grocers on Union Street sold the compmen separately, each family's recipe a jealously guarded secret. But caponata required ingredients that American supermarkets did not stock. As the immigrant generation passed and rooftop gardens were paved over, the jarred versions that line grocery shelves became translations of translations. Number 15. Vasilopita. Greek families baked a special bread only once a year at midnight on New Year's Eve with a coin hidden inside. The first slice went to Christ, the second to the house, then to each family member in order of age. In 1926, Greek bakeries on Mars Boulevard sold hundreds in the days before the New Year. As Greek families dispersed and church attendance declined, the midnight ritual faded. Bakeries still sell Vasilopa, but fewer families know the proper way to cut it. On the hottest days of Lower East Side summers, Jewish housewives served a cold soup made from sorrel leaves, chilled 1029, and served with sour cream and half a hard-boiled egg. In 1923, sorrel appeared in Jewish markets each spring. The soup was aggressively sour, a shock to the uninitiated. When the immigrant generation passed, knowledge of where to find sorrel passed with them. A soup that once cooled thousands of tenement kitchens now exists mainly in the memories of those who remember their grandmothers ladling it on sweltering August afternoons. Number 13. Irish sodafarls. The Irish who settled in Hell's Kitchen brought a bread that required no yeast. Sodafarls were made from flour, buttermilk, and baking soda, and they were cooked on a dry griddle until spotted brown. By 1921, Irish women baked farrells fresh each morning. The bread still warm when children grabbed pieces on their way to school. As Irish Americans prospered and moved to the suburbs, store-bought bread replaced the morning ritual. The griddles were packed away. Number 12. Cheerio Bao from Mott Street. Chinatown bakeries in the 1920s produced steamed buns filled with roast pork that bore no resemblance to today's versions. The pork was roasted over wood until the edges blackened, then chopped and mixed with a sauce that varied from shop to shop. In 1925, bakeries sold buns for 5 cents to laborers who worked 18-hour days. The recipe required clay ovens that most bakeries no longer possess. When Chinatown modernized in the 1960s, the wood-fired ovens were replaced with gas, and something essential was lost. Kifli, Hungarian and Austrian Jewish bakers created crescent-shaped pastries made from dough rich with butter, rolled thin, and spread with walnut or poppy seed filling. In 1922, Hungarian bakeries sold keli by the dozen for celebrations. The filling was ground by hand, the sugar measured by feel. When the bakeries closed and their bakers passed on, the recipes went with them. Roman Jews and Italian Catholics found common ground in tripe, simmered for hours in tomato sauce with mint and pecorino cheese. In 1926, trattorias served trippa on Saturdays when the dish had simmered since Thursday. The dish required tripe properly cleaned by butchers who knew what they were doing. A skill that faded as supermarkets replaced neighborhood meat markets. Number 9. Grisel Supvian az semolina dumpling soup. Austrian immigrants brought a dumpling soup so 1330 for delicate it could cure any ailment. Gris Noel were semolina dumplings light as clouds that floated in clear beef broth. In 1923, Viennese coffeehouses served the soup as a first course. Sick children were fed Gris Noel soupi until their fevers broke. When the Austrian coffeehouses closed in the 1950s, the soup retreated to home kitchens and then faded further. Number 8. Sensei. During Carnival, Italian bakeries produced fried ribbons of dough so thin they shattered at a touch, dusted with powdered sugar. Sensei were made only in the weeks before Lent. In 1924, bakeries sold them by the bagful. The tradition required a community that observed Lent strictly enough to make the pre-Lent indulgence meaningful. As observance faded, so did the urgency to eat sensei while you still could. Number 7. Kugel from the brick oven. Before electric ovens, Jewish housewives brought their Sabbath kugel to neighborhood bakeries to cook in the residual heat of brick ovens. The kugel would be slid in Friday afternoon and left overnight, emerging Saturday morning, transformed by hours of slow cooking. In 1921, bakeries accepted kugels by the dozen. When brick ovens gave way to gas and electric, the overnight kugel became impossible. Number 6. Cotacino with lentils. Italian families from Emilia-Romagna brought a New Year's tradition of pork sausage served with lentils whose coin-like shape promised prosperity. On December 31, 1925, Italian butchers sold cotacino by the hundreds. The sausage required a butcher who knew how to make it, and as Italian butchers retired without successors, cotacino became harder to find. Number 5. Mandel row. Jewish bakeries produced twice-baked cookies made with oil instead of butter, flavored with almonds and vanilla. In 1922, every Jewish bakery displayed trays in the window, and the cookies were sold by weight. Grandmothers kept mandel road in tins, always ready for visitors. When commercial bakeries discovered biscotti in the 1990s, mandel row retreated, perceived as old-fashioned. Number 4. Ellis Island beef stew. When immigrants arrived at Ellis Island, they were fed a meal designed to introduce them to their new country. Chunks of American beef floated in flour-thickened gravy with potatoes, carrots, and onions. Between 1900 and 1924, millions ate this stew as their first American meal. The recipe contained no garlic, no paprika, nothing that might taste like the countries left behind. It was a message. By 1924, The dining hall 148 had closed and the recipe existed only in government archives. Number 3. Spincian Polarmatano. Sicilian immigrants brought a thick spongy pizza topped with tomatoes, onions, anchovies, and breadcrumbs. In 1926, Sicilian bakeries in Bensonhurst sold spignon by the slice. When Neapolitan pizza became the American standard in the 1950s, Spincian retreated. A pizza that predates what Americans think of as pizza may soon vanish entirely. Number 2. PT Chich. The dish that separated true Lower East Siders from everyone else was pitcha. Jellied calves' feet mixed with garlic, hard-boiled eggs, and black pepper. In 1923, Jewish delicatessen sold pizza by the slice. Men swore by it as a hangover cure. The dish required calves' feet, and 1748 it required butchers who knew how to prepare them. When that community dispersed, pizza went with it. Number 1. Sunday gravy. The red sauce that simmered all day Sunday in Italian-American kitchens was not a recipe, but a ritual. It began Saturday night with browning meat. Sunday morning, the tomatoes went in. For 6, 7, sometimes 8 hours, the sauce simmered while the family went to Mass. In 1924, the smell drifted through every Italian neighborhood in New York. The gravy required time that modern life refuses to give. A home where someone was present all day. A family who would gather at the same table every week. When women entered the workforce and families scattered, Sunday gravy became a memory. The jarred sauces cannot replicate 3 generations arguing about whether the sauce needed more basil. Talk to the oldest person in your family this week. Ask them what their grandmother cooked. Write it down. These recipes aren't just food. They're proof that your family survived